to pick up the pieces. I left you with the parts of me I don't wanna see you again. Don't wanna write any more of our story, 'cause I know how it is. When love isn't enough, you have to move on just to be numb. You know the rules there. No, it's not right. No, it's not right. I sleep better at night. When love isn't enough, you have to move on just to be numb. You know the rules there. No, it's not right. No, it's not right. But I'll sleep better tonight. When love isn't enough, you have to move on just to be numb. You know the rules there. No, it's not right. No, it's not right. No, it's not right. I sleep better at night. I just keep crying when I hear your name. Kissing her just sparked a flame. I took you for granted, and you did the same. I wish I never said those things. Taking your love is mine to keep, 'cause now you're my biggest regret, and it's not even a secret. When love isn't enough, you have to move on just to be numb. You know the rules there. No, it's not right. No, it's not right. I sleep better at night. When love isn't enough, you have to move on just to be numb. You know the rules there. No, it's not right. No, it's not right. But I'll sleep better tonight. No, it's not right. I sleep better at night. No, it's not right. I sleep better at night. No, it's not right. I sleep better at night. No, it's not right. I sleep better at night. No, it's not right. I sleep better at night. Isn't enough, you have to move on just to be numb. You know the rules there. No, it's not right. No, it's not right. But I'll sleep better tonight.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us for what is the first practice session in a 7 race series known as Peak Performance. Drivers will be competing over 7 races starting tomorrow, June 3rd, ranging all the way to August 19th. These races will be every other weekend, and they are competing for their cut of $100,000 on offer. Here we have the first practice session at the Virginia International Raceway, and this will be the track for round number 1 in this series. My name is Chad Dillon. I will be one of your hosts this evening. I am joined now by Mr. Andrew Spence.
Good evening, Chad. I heard some figures a while ago. I was wondering, how Mr. President was saying that he had no money, but $100,000. That's sounding quite,
Jamaican dollars, isn't it?
quite the figure. You know, man. That's what you mean? Two light bill and you're good. You see me? Well, yes, it seems like this should be an interesting race tomorrow. This seems a bit. I don't use the word wild, but for a first round race, this track does not necessarily.
You know,
I don't even know what to say about this.
this is supposed to be the elite drivers on the
guess.
Jamaican sim racing scene.
The
So,
peak performers.
exactly, there you
Right.
go. So they should have, as you see, you're gonna see a lot of that this weekend, folks. As you see, the top performers, you need to incentivize them to perform and give the people a show. And this track is a good way to start. Deep end. We're not baby nobody.
Drought, exactly. What you said you did a couple laps on this track. What would you compare it to previously?
Oh, so it has elements of Road Atlanta, through the end of Sector 1 into Sector 2 kind of reminds me of bits and pieces of Road Atlanta. There are elements of Silverstone and a little bit of Spa, I want to say. Not in terms of length, but in terms of elevation change. You get a little bit of Spa. Road Atlanta in terms of how some of the corners are put together. And then Silverstone in terms of you have some very high speed sections with very technical turns.
Or as you mentioned, Road Atlanta, the one corner that always comes to mind is that one where I keep missing the breaking point. The very end of, I think it's Sector 3? Is it Sector 3?
The before the chicane?
Yes, man.
Yes, so there is a corner that is almost exactly the same on this track. There's a long straight leading into, it's not really a chicane, it's a kind of, it is a chicane, but it's a very strange chicane. So yeah, there's a very similar turn out there that you might see some of the same thing happening. So yeah, it'll be a fun one to watch. There are some very technical sections of this track, and you will get an idea of the prowess of some of these drivers under certain scenarios. Like trail braking is very important around here, and it should be on any track, but particularly if you want to get around here in any kind of speed, trail braking is important.
Corners seem quite steep and at the same time they're held, they're sustained. It's not,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you have long sweeping corners, you have corners that kind of roll right into another one, and if you don't line yourself up, if you don't put your car in the right position, you will, to borrow a phrase from El Presidente, get what it don't get.
fried.
And as we started this practice session, I see a few drivers on track and one going off track. You'll get a feel for what the drivers are capable of.
So sorry to cut you there.
No problem.
Looking at the track now, the track limits, well, I mean, there's no other choice. Anything outside of the white line is grass.
Correct.
So how many in peak performance series? How many driver How many cuts do we allow?
Same five
Same
that we've
five.
had for
Wow.
Chase of Pace.
Wow.
The five will continue. They will get their warnings throughout the lap, but like you said, around this track, if you cut in, you're mowing lawn.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
there won't be
Damn.
much of that to happen. And in a moment, whilst El Presidente is giving us a look at the track there on stream, you get an idea for. It's not necessarily a long track. It looks a little bit long when you look at the map, but it's not as long as you might think. Laps will be somewhere in the realm of a minute 51 high to low to mid minute 52s. And El Presidente will give us a look at the classification of times momentarily so that you can get an idea of how these drivers are performing. So as you can see, the pro times are minute 15.19s. You know, some drivers have been sub that time already, so we know they can compete with the pros. Pro-am times are minute 53.2, and amateur times, which is about where I fall, are the minute 55s.
The pro time is a minute 53.
The pro-am times.
Oh, no.
Pro times are minute 51. But yeah, so we have 3 drivers out on track right now, as we're looking at what times have been done so far this week. The top 3 performers are our usual suspects. Jaden Harrison leading at the top of the leaderboard, Kurt Moss in second, and Mark Anthony Eaton right there with them in third. Just over a tenth off the top time, so all 3 drivers within a tenth and a half of each other. Not much in it. And going down the list, there are a few other drivers that are worth mentioning. So we will likely see some on-track action tomorrow. Those drivers in the middle of the pack are also very tight together. And who's to say that there will not be excitement on our hands for the season opener for Peak Performance 2023. As we're looking at the drivers out there, Andrew, based on the times you've seen thus far this week, now we can just put it back up for the fans to get an idea of what it looks like. You know, what are your thoughts on what the race tomorrow will shape up like? Care to wager any bets?
Well, for the past 2 races, it's been the same 3 culprits. Harrison, Moss, Eaton. Generally within the first couple of laps, I'm talking about race now. It's usually between Jane and Moss, with Eaton looking to take advantage of the battle, but I don't know. Qualifying, I would say those 3, but race, I don't know, cause it.
Well, I'll give you 24 hours to think
Yeah,
about
I will
it.
need some time.
And when we come back for the event tomorrow, we can then, wager our bets at the start of the event to see how we shape up towards the end. And it is of note that there are 3 drivers yet to put in times for this week. Michael Paisley, Joshua Brady, and Michael McMahon have not put any times on the board, but they are required to complete a mandatory 75 laps before the event tomorrow. So, in order to be eligible for that event, they have 75 laps to do in the next 24 hours.
Which one was 150?
Every race after this race, but they've only had a week to prepare for this race since the last JSRA event.
Okay.
And so they get half the distance, half the number of laps. But every race going forward in the JSRA series, drivers are required to complete a mandatory 150 laps prior to the event. So good on you for bringing that up. But those three drivers, you know, I mean, you enter the competition and this is your shot at your cut of $100,000. Hear me up in the money, Papa El Presidente again. Like him not paid them enough already. Yes, but you know, some money is on offer, so you'd like to think that these drivers would want to put their best foot forward. Not to say they're not doing their laps off circle, but you are required to do your on circle laps in order to be eligible for this competition. So we will see. We have 9 drivers thus far that have more than, well, 9 drivers that have done some laps. Some drivers have yet to put in any numbers close to what they should be. Everybody down to position 7 on the leaderboard thus far. Right, everybody down to 7th position thus far have more or less finished their laps. Ropo is on servo now, so I mean he needs 2 laps. I imagine throughout this practice session he'll more than find those. But everybody from 8 to 12 has some work to do before the event tomorrow. We understand that Michael McNair will not be available for tomorrow's race. Rather unfortunate, because you do not want to set yourself back in terms of point scoring.
Right.
But some situations are unavoidable, and therefore we will see what comes of it for those drivers.
I noticed we see Park here. I'm not sure if he practiced before, but the past 3 races, he's really not been performing well. I know we kind of attributed that to possibly the track and cars. Some drivers perform well on some, but to have 3 in a row, it's kind of
Well, I guess
a bit concerning. It's
I
not.
guess we'll have to see what he's capable of this weekend, but it's less than. I know how it gets when, you know, there you are not. Whoops. You are not either fond of or, you know, enjoy a track a certain way. There are drivers out there that are specialists, so you are great at one track, not so wonderful at the next. And it kind of creates an environment where you will excel in some races, as we've seen Park do in the past, but then on other tracks you are not so versed, you know, because either it's a little bit more technical. I can give you an example for me personally. Never understood it. I am significantly slower around the Hungaroring than I am around most other circuits. That track, for some reason, gives me endless trouble. And it's not that the track is too complex, it's just I don't necessarily. It has some corners that I find a little bit tricky, and that's me personally. Other drivers I see out there can hold their own around any track. Moss, Eaton, Jaden are good examples of that. Even Ropo can hold his own around any track. He might not be as quick as the other 3, but there's certainly some talent there behind that drive.
I see that Eaton is probably based on the times, the closest he's been in terms of time to the top 2 so far. So this race may prove somewhat in his favor this time around, because he's a 10th,
Just over 10.
yeah.
Just over 10. And here's the thing, right? Around a track like this, it is so easy to make a mistake. because it's a very complex track.
Look at that. Look at that.
Yeah, every section requires precision because you don't have runoffs to play with. If you dip two wheels on grass, the car is, as you see right now, Roper just kind of aiding my point. So thank you to him in demonstrating for me what happens when you dip two wheels on the grass. The car is gonna go because that is half the grip gone. And every corner, with the exception of the corner with the little rumble strips there, you find that if you are not picture perfect, you will find yourself wide. Therefore, for a driver like Ethan, one, consistently does the most laps out of any other driver in the competition. Two, shows his consistency because of it. You might find that a race like this one in particular might lend itself to his favor, in that with his level of consistency and being that close to the two drivers in front of him, it could very well be on for him this weekend. I'll save the rest of that for my predictions tomorrow. But yeah. And Moss is another one who also shows his consistency. I mean, he's not going to do the same number of laps as Eaton, but that's what happens when you look at pure raw talent. It shows that he definitely has the know-how and the skill to just chuck the car around any track and be competitive. So we will see what we have on offer in the morning. Well, tomorrow evening, I should say. I've noticed that Ropo is yet to complete a solid lap in this practice session, but that just kind of shows you how tricky the track might be. As it's not for lack of trying. You see where he's in sector one. When we're in sector one, he is competitive, but apologies for a moment. And yet another example of how unforgiving this circuit will prove to be.
Sorry to cut you again. You are allowed to complete the remainder of your laps during the practice session, or you need to complete it. Okay.
So your laps will count throughout the week, one. Two, during the practice session. And three, the same track will be raced on the off weeks in chaser pace. And those laps will also count towards your weekly goal. And those laps have to be completed by 6:30 p.m. race day, which is an hour before go live. Qualifying starts at 7:30. And once you have completed your laps, and you are more than eligible to complete. Still seen Roper struggle here to maybe get the grips.
That didn't look like a corner. He should be sliding. I'm not sure.
Oh no, certainly. Listen, any corner around this track will spit you out because they are, again, this is one of those tracks where you have to be pinpoint accurately braking. Trail braking does not forgive, in that if you don't have the car in perfect balance, Roper running wide again. So
it's the same. It's the same type of car, chaser pace performance. But is this version the one that you're able to adjust the parameters, or is it still the same?
no, so you still have a very limited amount of adjustments that you can make to the car, which does lend itself to showing showing what you're capable of. But yeah, going through what the event will be for the drivers throughout the weekend. After the qualifying, after the practice sessions and after practice concludes at 6:30 on the Saturday, they will have their driver briefings starting at, I think, 6:45. 6:30, my apologies. Driver briefing at 6:30, driver briefing runs till 7, and then the server will be open for them to, everybody to get queued up, get in the room, make sure nobody's having any issues. Then quali starts precisely at 7:30. Quali will run for 15 minutes. After that 15 minutes concludes, we will have our 45-minute race. Pit window opens at minute 10, closes 1 minute before the end of the race, and after that 45-minute race, there will be a reverse grid sprint based on finishing order from the race. So the order you finish it in the race will determine the starting position in the sprint, but reverse grid, and that sprint will be a 15-minute race.
How are points allocated in that reverse?
So you get points from 1st through 8th position in the sprint. 1st through 8th, starting with 8 points, ending at 1 point. And in the 45-minute race, it's 25 points at first, 18 second, 15 third, 12 fourth, 10 fifth. 6th place gets 8 points, 7th position gets 6 points, 8th position 4, 9th position 2, and 10th position 1. So similar to Formula 1, with the exception of pole position giving you half a point, which is closer to the F2 format actually, and fastest lap gives you an additional point.
And this will carry on for every single round.
Every round throughout the competition will be scored the exact same, and it will be a tally of all 7 rounds to determine.
Even if you're the slowest man, you have a chance.
Exactly. Just have to get in a good position, score some points, and learn to park the bus. You find yourself in a good position, defend like you are Ukraine.
It's the track to do it.
So,
will we be having any what's the word? Weather or time of day affecting the races or in any part of this series? So 99 races, any
so I will confirm the entirety of it as we go along, but my understanding is there is a possibility of some change in conditions. It is dynamic, so grip might not always be optimum as it is now, but that we will confirm how deep into that rabbit hole we're going as we go along. That being said, drivers should be prepared for all conditions. That's what makes you a racing driver. It can't just be quick on a dry track. And in all other conditions.
It would be interesting to have one of those pop-up races with pop-up dynamism. That's the word. Yes.
Sure, let's go with it. The thesaurus of JSRA commentators.
Rain and
With the exception of Eden, all other drivers currently in the session struggling to put a lap together. You'll see Jaden out on track momentarily. Another front-running driver. to join Eaton at the top of the time charts. Eaton 3/10, 4/10 off his fastest time thus far. So we will see as the session progresses what times these drivers will find. And knowing Mark Anthony Eaton as well as I do, he will find that time one way or the next, whether tonight or tomorrow. That time will be found.
What was your bias? Something like 61?
Just about. Just about.
The rotation seems crazy.
So, well, I always find that bias is a driver preference more than, and Eaton finding a little bit more time. They're finding about 2/10 on that lap, well, a tenth and a half. So he is inching closer to getting down into those 1:51s. But yeah, I find that bias, let me not misspeak, bias does contribute to what you are capable of doing throughout a lap. However, it is somewhat of a driver preference to determine how you set up the car in terms of what your braking points are and how hard you brake. So we are getting word from Eaton's team that Eaton has been toying with the brake bias all week, and
Every corner.
yeah, you know, which again, as I was saying to him earlier, that's how F1 drivers do it, and if they can do it in those cars,
You see
those
that? You see
speeds-
that? It marvels me. I tell you why. Going back to my same shifter car trailer, talk about every weekend,
Right.
right? When I'm Palisado's track, driving a shifter car,
Uh-huh.
I've had instances where I've decided, let me look over in the stands for like half a second, or let me. By the time you refocus on track, everything feels different. Either going into a wall or the grass or anything. So
Oh, no, but that's
Maybe
your
we-
mistake.
What?
That's your mistake.
It's something to experience.
You not know what concentration is? That's not how concentration
No, you
works.
Seriously,
Oh,
you know,
which
you-
girl in the fight understands the check out?
It's just like, you get comfortable, you do lap after lap, it's like, alright, this mind starts settling. But, I'm just assuming. Okay, I just look here for a second and look back. So,
Start reminiscing about your trip to Brownstone.
in more ways than one. Yes.
And we are now getting a look at one of the safety cars for this Peak Performance series. If you'll notice, it is a little bit different to the car on track, as El Presidente is giving us a roll just to kind of give us a look at it. But yeah, this will be the car that is brought out at the point of needing to bunch the grid up for any reason, whether there has been an accident, whether there has been some event that requires a reset of the race, to put it mildly. So this is to give you a look at one of the potential cars you'll see on track leading the grid. So to respond to the question in chat, the top part of the track being listed as 500 feet in terms of elevation change, I'm sure it should play a role in terms of performance, whether it be, I don't think you're gonna get much change in terms of car performance, not any bogging down of the engine or anything like that, but it does alter braking points on the downhill section or on the uphill section, because you wouldn't need to brake as early throughout sections as you would if it was a flat track. So outside of kind of adjusting braking points, so on and so forth, I don't think it should affect car performance much in any other ways. So there will be a momentary break in stream. You'll still hear our voices, yay for you. However, the stream will stop momentarily as some of the drivers are having issues joining, so we're doing a reset to see if we can get the drivers in. Whilst we're doing so, we can reminisce about them brownstone experiences.
Oh no. That will not be repeated again. Maybe the one on track, yes. Yes, it's, as I was saying, Chad, it's scary. And you know what? I did it again just to see if my mind was just going. Because I'm saying, no man, half a second, just look to the right, just for a second. I'm on the straight, so I don't keep turning, but look to the left or right, all of a sudden my cart is a full cart over to the left or right. Just by looking.
It certainly can happen in terms of any lapse in concentration will throw you very much off your rhythm. That is why it is so impressive to think about for top level drivers when we're talking Formula One, because you're not just talking about sitting in a car that is going 300 plus kilometers an hour and 200 plus kilometers through some corners. These drivers are doing it at extreme G forces.
Bro,
and
that's the next thing. You sit in a, it didn't have to be a shifter, just one of those cars like a rotator. When you're in that seat, when you make a corner, you feel like your ribs are going to break.
Yep. Not just your ribs, you can imagine your neck bobbing up and down and all them things there now. And it's when people look at racing drivers and think they're not athletes, they're sorely mistaken.
Definitely.
But yeah, no, throughout the lap, your concentration has to be on point. Any little thing can throw you off your rhythm, and you miss a breaking point by even a split second. And seconds aren't that hard to count. That was a second.
As you said, actually crashing is, you'd think you'd be afraid while you're crashing, because I thought that would be my experience. But you have no time to even feel
react.
afraid.
Oh.
Yes, I remember I was going down the straight with Palisados, and the piston apparently hit the tip of the plug.
Mm-hmm.
And I was still in gear, so that basically gripped the rear tires, and I was just spinning into a spiral, and I'm sitting there just saying, oh yeah, this is it. Yeah, I'm gonna die. I'm gonna hit that fence, and that's it. But I felt so calm in that moment.
Yeah, no, you haven't had time to process all of the emotions that is in turmoil. The most you've had time to do is think about the fact that this might hurt a little bit.
Yes. Oh, well, yeah. This might hurt. Yeah. You just wait for it.
And that's as much anticipation as you can muster in the time it's gonna take you to realize that you're going to have this accident and to have the accident.
It's worth it though. I think we need to get in on the shifter and have a go.
I'm sorry, I don't think you understand how momentum works, but 6'2", I weigh 280 pounds.
So the straight, the deal.
How much of them car they come with a 6-cylinder? We need another 6-cylinder.
Trust me, that engine looks small there, but I don't care how much you weigh, it's gonna spin the hell out of it.
If it's a 2-stroke in there, I can't ride a yang.
It's a 2-stroke.
I can't ride a yang.
It's on steroids. Steroids rules. Because as I said, at first when they told me, oh, it's 30 horsepower, I'm like, 30 horsepower, yeah, okay. Yeah. And then I drove it, and what the hell is this? What is this? It's insane, man. No four-stroke, no bad like no two. I mean, no four-stroke is that, you know.
Hold on. I think El Presidente has something he'd like to add on stream.
Yes, we need
but
to-
he's being very, very, very him over here a push talk. But I'm going to tell him the same thing I tell anybody else. You have something to say with chest, please. Why are you over there whispering? Ladies and gentlemen, the president of the JSRA, Stephen Stewart. Say something to your fans, sir.
Hi, good evening, everybody. I just want the gentleman to put some respect on the two-stroke name. That's all I ask kindly. Thank you. Have a great evening.
Two-stroke is where it's at. Man who put the weed whacker engine on my bicycle. Swear. No, trust me, bro. It's insane.
You know what, bro? I'm struggling a little bit with understanding the inner workings of El Presidente. 1 week him love chat and the next week him camera shy. I don't understand how that man still work. It confusing.
I think him,
With chest, El Presidente, with
he's
chest.
a bit nervous this week because he didn't buy the donuts. So, let's take time with him. He's not in any trouble in it, but I don't think him know that, you know. So,
No, I also think what happened is this is El Presidente's first major competition. You know, people might be watching. So you see, yeah, things to say. So what you said. But yes, no, he should have sponsors watching this weekend, so he wants to be on his best behavior, and he probably wants us to be on our best behavior.
okay. My apologies.
But him know I don't have no behavior. So
Yeah, that's why I said my apologies. Not that's going to be any better. Just,
yeah, no,
you know.
him know I don't have no behavior from long time, so I don't know what him expect to happen. So, yeah.
Was this the original safety car we used to use before?
I don't think so.
We used to use
I don't
as
really.
a safety car, no?
No.
But it was a Benz, just saying, man.
So the other one was the Black Edition from the Formula One series.
Okay.
This one is from the it's GT series. Okay, so yeah, it's a different safety car overall. The one that we've been using before was the Aston Martin from the Formula One safety car, as
yeah,
well as
that's
the
it.
Mercedes-Benz safety car. Right.
As we're getting a very good look at the livery being sported by Jane Harrison and Cale Baden Roper are both using the same livery. One of the six liveries that will be on display throughout the weekend. It might be 5. But you see these liveries, and as we're getting a very good look at the designer of these liveries on the back of the car, they have been designed by AM Designs, and the driver who you are now riding along with, Mark Anthony Eaton, is the perpetrator of said designs. So Eaton there on a 152.5. We're still yet to see the times that they have put in on the server.
This is a livery done by Eden.
Yes, all the
I like
liveries
this.
that you see
I like this one.
are done by Mark Anthony. This one is
Yeah, I like
this one is very pretty, but there is one that is my absolute favorite, which I'm not sure I see on track at the moment, but we will be seeing it tomorrow. I'll point it out then. It is a black carbon fiber livery with some green trimmings and stripes, and that's used by Mr. Mossy himself, Kurt Moss, who is not on track this evening. but we will be seeing him tomorrow. So we do have the session picking up. I see 4 drivers out. Well, 6 drivers in the session, 4 out on track. And some of those big hitters, Mark Anthony Eaton, Jaden Harrison, Hill Roper, and Mitch and Wallace.
It's getting closer now.
And Roper finally found a lap there after much attempts. 7-10 stone, but you know, you have to start dialing it from somewhere. It is very tricky out there, as we have seen. As we're riding hill double park,
It's all up 4 seconds. So that was the time we saw the 150.
that was Robo.
Was Robo?
153.
Oh.
That was 153. Eaton found another 3 tenths there, and he's now down to a 152.2, which is about 2 tenths off the best time he's posted thus far, and 3 and change tenths off the fastest time of the week so far. So So you'll see the driver out on track at the moment that we're following along with is Stephen Hummels. It is of note that he will not be competing, but there are some spots for drivers, you know, enthusiastic drivers to try their hand at the circuit on offer to see if they would have been competitive. And as a practice session has no real impact on the race itself, why not let the drivers see how they'd fare against big name competition?
So let me get this straight. Eaton has done, aside from doing the most laps, he also has responsibility of creating the liveries.
Man of many talents.
Wow, so I mean, it sounds like a president needs to have a little, you know, segue with the 100K, because, you know, man is doing extra work, you know what I'm saying?
I imagine nobody works for free, so you know. But it's contracted. I was gonna. Anyways, moving on. Andrew trying to start some drama up in here. That I don't understand why I'm trying to start. Andrew needs to behave himself. I thought I was the bad behaving one. Davil Park almost 3 seconds off pace. Not sure if that was just a warm-up lap to kind of find the bearing, so we'll see what the times look like as we progress through the session.
Probably is because he was at 157 for quite a while, so he seems to be finding the pace right away.
That is the fastest time
If he
posted
does
all
find
week.
it, based on his performance in our previous race with himself and Eaton, a couple of races back, but if he finds that pace, he may have something to deal with at the beginning of this race. It may be quite an interesting start with Mont, Jaden, Park, and Eaton.
Well, let's see what time he gets to before the end of the session. We're still waiting on some times from some of the other drivers that are out there. But I know it's proving quite tricky to get their laps in. Again, this track is no joke, as we see a big lock up there from Caleb Bain Noble. But this track is no joke, and I think we may get some eventful racing tomorrow, not just in terms of on-track action, but we might find that there are quite a few mistakes throughout this is one of those tracks that really does test a driver and his ability.
What did you manage in your attempt on this?
Oh
For them,
boy,
for them.
boy, and there's a reason I make El Presidente leave it out of the times that he showed, because
No, but what? How did you?
I think the quickest time I've done so far, keep in mind I've done maybe 5 valid laps.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. We know how that goes. So I just interested.
Oi, oi.
Oh,
That was close there between Mitch and Wallace and who I assume was Jaden Harrison.
It's not on the track. It's not funny.
That could have been a catastrophe. But put on both drivers to avoid, well, somewhat to avoid the carnage. But yes, I've only managed about a 155.3, something like that.
I mean, the good thing about this, as much as the track is kind of, I would say, narrow-ish, the runoffs are pretty open, so they probably won't be as susceptible to damage.
Well, you say runoffs, but those aren't runoffs, sir. Those
mean,
are fields.
Runways, yeah. I mean,
And-
that may play in their favor. They're not really hitting
Yes,
anything.
but no. And I'll
Yeah.
tell you why. Because of all of the elevation change around the track, when you are sliding and you're sliding through grass,
Well,
you'll
that's
find
true.
yourself losing chunks of time.
Sliding downhill.
Exactly.
To the next one. Yeah, it's a track riddled with dynamic elevation changes, and as mentioned earlier, it's not much to physically damage the car, but in that regard, drivers technically may be losing the same amount of time as if they were to go back into the pits. That's relative, but how much is the damage set to? 50%. 50%. That's still a lot. That's still a lot, but it's better than 100 on any given day, because 100% means retirement if you hit into another car or the wall. Steering changes, aerodynamic changes, braking changes, possibly engine failure, car written off. So 50 is a reasonable amount to have these drivers racing under. So yes, Eaton's still at the top of the charts of this practice session since the beginning. Hasn't improved on his 152.2 as yet, but he's getting there. I would assume the aim is not necessarily to even attack the fastest time right now. It's probably more of fine-tuning his approach to every single corner on this track, because the fastest time, as you can see, I have been seeing throughout the past races, does not necessarily dictate the final race outcome.
So as I was missing in action for a couple of seconds there, I said the usual suspects have found themselves 2 tenths apart at the top of the table there in Jaden Harrison and Mark Anthony Lee. Rope was about a second behind. That seems to be about the pace that he was on for the week thus far. We will see if the drivers have anything more on offer, as we have about an hour and 10 to go in this practice session here this evening.
I noticed some of the drivers, quite a few of them actually, half the wheels on the grass, half the wheels on the track when they're taking certain corners. How did you find the input on the steering in those situations? Because I know.
So I'm going to point something out to you. Now, if you look at how the drivers go through some of the corners, if you notice, there are two kinds of curves throughout the track. There is a normal, I don't know how to describe them differently. There's one that's kind of like a sausage curve, except it's not exactly a sausage curve. And then there's a normal curves that you find they're not red and white. So like both of them are there. To give you a good example, as we ride along here, Mitch and Wallace going through that one. If you find yourself touching the sausage curve in the wrong spots, instant spin out. But it can also help you in getting through some corners if you know how to use it correctly. So if you put the wheels on it at the right point throughout the corner, then it helps you with rotating the car through that corner. But if you put the wrong wheel on it at the wrong time, you find yourself pointing the other direction.
So the elevation of the sausage curve kind of holds the car in the corner with the wheels.
No,
on
the
it.
lack of grip kind of helps in rotating the car throughout the corner on that curve. So if you use that curve to kind of slip one wheel while you rotate the other wheels through traction, you'll find that you can gain. Drivers getting very testy here on track this evening. What's happening?
Who's hold up? Mitchell. Okay.
Mitch and Wallace and Mark almost having a moment there on track. Drivers finding themselves coming very close together throughout some of these laps.
The race before the race.
But yeah, so between the sausage curbs and putting the wheels on the grass, sometimes it helps with rotating the car through the corner. Other times it will certainly spin you. It's just about how you use it and when you use it. So Jaden Harrison finding himself with a 151.9 there, which is right on the mark of the pro times, and I think almost precisely what has been done as the quickest time this week. So he's about 2,000ths off, actually 1,000 off the fastest time he himself has posted this week. And that is exactly how I invalidate almost every lap around this track. Jane Harrison dipping three of his four wheels, because clearly this is still a valid lap as he is up throughout the first sector on the time he has posted thus far. But
It's the penalty or the cut. It happens when you say it's two wheels. Two wheels has
all four wheels.
So 4 wheels.
Right.
But 3 wheels missing.
Right. So all four wheels have to be off the track in order for it to be a cut.
okay. Oi.
Jaden abandoning that lap, I'm not sure what happened there. And he is now back to the pits. As he was up in the first sector, maybe losing some time there in the second sector and just deciding to abandon it in the hopes of going for another run. Eating about 3/10 and change off of Jaden's time. Has about 3-ish tenths that he could find here to match his fastest time thus far. And I'm sure as we progress through the session, he will find it. Very persistent lad is Mark Anthony. Roper and Wallace right around their kind of zone there, which is, I think for them, what they have mastered is race pace.
Who are you referring to now?
Roper and Wallace, as they're about a second and a half off of the drivers in front. But they've kind of just found a pace that they're comfortable with, that they can do consistently, and that's how they race. Whereas the other drivers will be constantly pushing to see what the maximum performance they can get out of a car is. They just find that kind of comfort zone where they are just quick enough to be within a shout and consistent enough throughout the course of a race. That's how I look at it, at least.
Yeah, I think you're correct because I find that, but like myself, I'm probably more on that spectrum of things in terms of that approach because the more you try to push, you generally lose that focus and that concentration on everything. All those laps that you put together to figure the track out, you start to add an extra element now that wasn't there before, which is that extra pace that you're not really in control of, or you haven't figured out how to control it.
But I think so. Here's what I always say to somebody that has that argument. You're not going to sit there going the same pace you were before and ever figure out how to control it up until you're pushing the car to kind of see what the limits are. You won't know.
I
So-
guess, but also, I mean, in terms of, there are quite a few limitations, I would say.
Mhm.
So I would say one of them is the sensitivity of the equipment that you're using, meaning the bandwidth that allows you, which would inevitably affect how precise you can be. Because lap after lap, you'll be surprised. But if you're not getting certain kind of information, you have no control within that spectrum.
So I'll tell you this. People like to make the equipment argument, right? And I'm not saying it doesn't play a factor, and I'm not saying that better equipment cannot be a benefit or isn't a benefit. But there's a driver that was in the Colombia versus the Caribbean series.
Estefano Barrera. Big ups. You're welcome.
As El Presidente gives us his name.
It's a very good friend of mine. Very good friend.
That man was on a Logitech G25.
Here's my thing about that. Here's my thing about that. No.
Mhm.
I used a G25, personal experience. I don't know if it was a fluke, but I used G25 and I used a Logitech Driving Force GT. And I'm going to tell you guys right now, I'm not saying that's what caused him to be so good, but the feeling I got from the Driving Force GT, which is a way earlier wheel than the G27 and G29, is way better because I ended up giving my brother, and when I got the G29, I'm like, oh, this is not it. I don't know if they downgraded the way it felt, but for some reason it was just a more consistent feel for me.
And good evening again, everybody. My question to you, Andrew: how many years did you run that first unit?
About 3 years.
3 years. And about how long for the G29?
What, the G29? Probably about the same. Probably not, it didn't reach years, probably 2.5, if so much.
2.5.
Yeah.
All right. So my thing that I always tell to drivers is equipment. Better equipment, obviously, you get a better feel of the road, you get a better feel of the car, etc., etc., etc. However, at the end of the day, what really makes guys fast is consistency. So the more you know your equipment is, the better you'll be. You get me? The best piece of equipment that I always suggest to people to upgrade more than the wheel is more the pedals.
I agree.
Because the pedals itself, especially the load cell pedals, will give you a little bit more, one, feel for the road, you understand, or feel for the car, like I said. So yeah, again,
It's not a one size fit all. So you can make the argument and say it doesn't, but you can also make the argument and say it does. Because the truth is, if you use extremes to compare it, for example, me sitting on with a keyboard and a mouse versus probably me, same conditions, using it as a control. It's improbable that I'll be getting the same times as if I had the intricacies of a wheel.
It wasn't to say that one is preferred to the other. It was more just to point out, as El Presidente was saying, that the equipment that you have doesn't necessarily hinder you a certain way as much as raw talent could.
Yeah, I understand that. But remember, we're talking about tenths here.
tense.
That's what I'm saying. So
Fair enough.
it's not like it's second. So
But then that argument can be flawed.
any argument can be flawed.
But
No,
that-
that's what I'm saying. So
Right.
it's not one size fit all.
Right.
All right. So let me give you a personal example. I sat here last week doing the IMOLA race, and on better equipment, on equipment that I was feeling a little bit more with, was a second slower. Why? Because I was so used to everything about my setup at home where I was finding all of the time that it was just not the hour that I did on the rig here prior to that race. I couldn't find back that entire second. Why? My pedals at home are different, so that adjustment is a little bit further. And it was just I wasn't feeling things the same. I could feel at home. I can feel where I start braking, and the force feedback settings that I have at home can tell me where I need to get off of the brake, that kind of thing. Whereas when I come here, it's a whole new learning curve. So
on that point, as you said, you wouldn't necessarily put it solely on the equipment, but rather the matchmaking. Meaning,
right,
yeah. So for example, to say that, and I'm not discrediting him here whatsoever, because I can't drive anywhere near as fast as him, Mr. Barrera. However, to then say, oh, he's an inferior by saying he's on a G25, it really has no place, because he may be best suited based on the way he thinks, the way he drives, the way he feels to a G25 versus that motor. You know what I'm saying?
okay.
So that's what I'm saying. It's not really a one size fits all, but
Yeah, no, it was just a kind of debate as to whether or not you could argue that the equipment.
But I think you're right. Based on the example you get, it's more of the match rather than the equipment itself.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's what.
It's what you're used to.
Exactly.
It's what you're used to.
What's he talking? What's that?
What's that? Speak in the chat. As we said in the chat, speak in the chat.
No, Emil said it with my test enough. Because you want to know how you know jumping and out as Yusuf it warm. And yet when we try to get him to say a few words here and there, this man is silent and a shy away from Mike. Good to know that you know you can contribute where you know your stuff. But why are you afraid of Mike? So what's the problem?
No, I'm not afraid of the mic. But I know when I need to jump and when I need to when I don't need to. It's
Okay.
as simple as that.
Okay, as a great man once said, a good leader knows where he's wanted and where he's needed.
Is that for eating for today's session?
Oh no, I'm certain he's just taking a breather. You know, greatness takes a lot out of an individual, and they have to they have to reassess and you know recenter, and then they can give you some more greatness.
I mean, once these corners start, there's no break, man.
I mean,
no break.
I'm gonna cut you for a second and put Mr. Eaton on the spot as he's sitting in the commentary box at the moment.
And say no.
Him said no from the start. But you know, we're not asking for much. We're just asking 2 questions and send you on your way. So, you know, VIR, how you feeling about the circuit so far?
Initially I didn't like it. No, it's a fun little track to drive. It's very much a roller coaster.
Certainly.
Yeah.
No, so I've done a few laps around it throughout the week, and I share your sentiments in that. My first few laps, I was like, my God, who chose this track? But as you get to know the track, you find that, you know, you appreciate the intricacies of it. And how are you feeling with the car around the circuit?
I'm still learning the car, honestly. I've gotten a hang of it now, but I know I'm losing some time just in how I'm driving the car.
Okay.
So once I iron out my little flaws, I think I can gain a little more time.
Okay. And well, you have 24 hours left to learn the track, but for you, I find that that might be all the time you need.
It's a long season. I'm more thinking all the way out to
Okay,
August.
and that's a good assessment to have as a driver. And as we're looking at some of the designs of the cars, that you have done, this is less of a question and more just a big ups. Well designed, good liveries, good showing on your part. And I see you best time this week is about a tenth of the two front
Yeah.
runners. But like you said, it's a long season, so how do you see yourself faring long term? I mean, I know you're here to win, but where do you match up with the competition thus far?
I'm gonna play the rookie card. I'm a rookie, so I'm here for experience.
That's a fair assessment.
I try not to go into races with expectations, because if I don't match up to it, I end up being very hard on myself. So I'm just going in to try and be competitive. I want to win, however, the aim is to just try and keep up with them.
All right. Best of luck tomorrow, and we're expecting great things from you this season. No pressure.
All of the pressure.
So generally in the GT3, is it usually rolling start for all these races?
I want to say that for the purposes of a set of course, it's going to be standing starts. Sorry, so that was just us here in the commentary booth confirming. Yes, Andrew is correct in that GT3 normally does start off with a rolling start. However, for the purposes of this series and because of the gaming platform that is Assetto Corsa, there will be standing starts throughout the event.
I think I prefer the standing. It may
It adds an element of
like a drag race to corner one, testing your shifting skills, power band of the car, the late brake, how how well you can judge how late you can brake to beat the man in front of you to the first corner.
as the popular saying goes, you can't win the race in turn one, but you can certainly lose it.
Well, I mean, before the straight kicking, if you can, the better position you're able to.
The kind of funky feature of this track is that no straight is actually absolutely
Well,
straight.
that's true.
It's a weird feature that this track has, that it has quote unquote 3 straights, but none of them are straight.
I saw one of the straights that had like 5 corners in it.
Well,
I mean,
and all you do is point the car in the middle of the 5 corners.
exactly. Well, that's the point.
But yeah, as we
Whoa.
some very strange lines for each individual driver through that corner.
This man caught it. That.
Eaton confirming that that's just the line through that corner.
On the grass.
Yeah. But that kind of goes back to the point I was making to you earlier, in that the curbs are necessary in taking some of these corners, in that they help with the rotation of the car. And Eaton now seems to be planning to rejoin the track, as he was sitting with us here in the commentary box for a little bit. Not a very camera happy guy is Mark Anthony Eaton, so it was good of him to spend a few minutes talking to us here. We appreciate it, as he is now finding himself back on circuit to maybe try and bridge that 3.5, 4/10 gap to Jaden Harrison as we ride along with him. Now, not bad in terms of consistency is Jaden Harrison, because that lap looks to be about 4/10 off what he has done previously. But yeah, as we go along here throughout the session, we're still looking for some times from the other drivers Why is Kale showing a second? Is he in the session at the moment? Okay, so Ropa has exited the session momentarily. So has Davil Park, it may seem, or is Park still? Park is also in the pits, not he's out of the session. Okay. So the current drivers in the session are Harrison, Eaton, Wallace, and Pommels. A reminder once more that Stephen Pommels is not racing, he is just in the practice session as a benchmark per se, just to kind of give you an idea of what the average driver might match up to in terms of the drivers competing in the peak performance. Or we're gonna make Andrew's term the normal term this weekend, the peak performers.
Yes.
So as we are halfway, just over halfway through this practice session, not sure if we'll be getting any more drivers joining throughout the evening. We'll see as we go along. But we are looking to see what these drivers have to offer. Mitch and Wallace was up in the first sector, down on his best time in the second sector. Still not yet matching pace with the two drivers in front. Not sure if he has more on offer, as he is a tenth and a half. Okay, so he is in the 152s, or has been throughout the week. Last lap was a 154. So, you know, he is what, 7, 8 tenths down on the fastest time so far this week. Well, 9 tenths down. But we will see what more he can find. He could be another wild card here, because a very consistent driver is Mitch and Wallace. So you might find that, yes, even though he is not the quickest driver, sometimes slow and steady does actually win the race.
I've noticed I'm seeing Mr. Clark's name here. Is that an indication that he would actually be in the race tomorrow?
He should be. He has 35 laps, 36 laps to complete in order to be eligible. He is among the drivers that have not yet completed their required laps. So that would be Clark, Park, Paisley, and Brady, and also Jason Alexander. McName, again, not racing this weekend, so he will not be seen throughout the week. However, the other drivers have not made any indication of their lack of participation, so we would have expected them to have fulfilled their obligation of laps. So, just to kind of, whilst we are riding along with Eaton here, just to give the fans an idea of what's to come over this 7-race series, be reminded that this series runs every other weekend, and there will be, fret not, we will not leave you without action on the weekends that are not peak performance. Those weekends will be filled by Chase for Pace.
Chase for Pace.
And those, the tracks will be the same for the Chase for Pace race prior to the peak performance race, just to kind of give the drivers a a practice session, a practice race, I should say, and B, just to give other persons that may not be in the peak performance series a chance to see how they would have matched up to, once again, borrowing Andrew's phrase, matched up to the peak performers.
I like that idea. They have a pre-race experience before the actual race.
Absolutely.
You know, what to correct, who to watch, where to overtake who, that kind of stuff. So I think
Definitely.
it makes sense. And I'm also looking forward to seeing your time chat. I was looking at the roster this evening, or early this morning, I think, and I was like, I didn't see the time. I was a bit disappointed. Not sure if Steven deleted it, but it's always good
Oh
to
no, I
see
certainly told him to delete
what,
it.
what the experience is like and what the time is like.
Well, you know, I'll tell you what, I'll put in a few more laps this evening, or
Yeah,
maybe throughout the day tomorrow, just to kind of appease my commentary co-host.
Yeah, it's
You
always
know.
a pleasure to see it. Because I myself,
I
not
guess
able
I
to
guess
join.
I'm the representative for the commentary box, just so that they know so the commentary box not slow.
Yeah, I've showed them, you know, we're just giving them a chance out there.
Oh my, and Stephen Pommel's there, maybe changing the name of the game to Rallycross, as he was stumbling across the lawn there.
Pummeling the grass.
So as we were discussing the format for the peak performance series and the fact that there will be a race in between. So next week will be Chase or Pace, Sonoma Raceway, followed by peak performance at Sonoma Raceway the following week. And the track for the next race would be the Red Bull Ring. Race 4 would be Mount Panorama. Race 5, Donington Park. Race 6, Circuit de Catalunya. And race 7, the series finale, Sao Paulo Interlagos, Brazil. And I must say a few of those tracks are tracks I certainly would enjoy being a part of. So you may see Mr. Dillon out there, not to say he'll be doing well out there, but you'll see him out there as he goes around and tries to not make a fool of himself.
Well, the tracks and days, race times will be posted every week, all before every pre-race session, every practice, so you guys have an idea of what to look forward to. And for those of you who are looking to take part in the chaser race,
Yeah.
you can, contact the JSRA at the page at JSRA official and make that connection, come in, test out the equipment, see how well you match up, and see, the probabilities of you actually making a name for yourself in this series. This upcoming brand new opportunity filled series.
Yeah, so just to clarify there, the Chase or Pace is open to absolute anybody. Peak performance is locked as there was a registration period with the JEI, who are our partners on this series. So peak performance cannot just be entered into at this stage, as that lineup has been locked to the 13 registered drivers, but only 12 of which are competing. And Chase or Pace we open up to the general public for a few reasons. One, we are trying to build what is a growing sport worldwide in Jamaica. And two, we are giving you the exposure of racing against seasoned drivers, and in the case of Mark Anthony Eaton, who was playing the rookie card, seasoned rookies.
Very well seasoned in the open how long.
Yeah, man, season like KFC chicken, I thought about him a rookie. But yeah, no, this is technically his first. He's still within his first year of sim racing, so that does qualify him to be a rookie. So we will give him that title. However,
We'll get there.
this is a chance to match up against once again, peak performers.
I'm sitting here saying he'll get there, and I'm like 10 seconds off the pace. But you know, he'll get there. He'll get where he needs to be.
Yeah, no, we do see some promising young talent.
Sorry to cut you, my co-host. For those of you who are looking at this, or maybe looking at this, and saying, "Oh, it's easy. It's just a game." Yes, you're right. I want you to come and try it. Come through and try it and beat these slow people. If you know how to drive Need for Speed, this is nothing. Just come through, come to JSRA and prove it.
That's good talk right there. I especially love the Need for Speed part. But yeah, no, certainly. Lots of Jamaicans out there seem to have tough chat, but then when it comes time to put your money where your mouth is,
All of them.
you know what I mean? So yeah, here's your opportunity to put your money where your mouth is. We do have Nova Raceway on offer, so if you want to come and show that all of the man them out there that love talking about, you know, oh Nova, them if them a drive Nova, them ray.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Come through, we'll give the car your choice. Come show what you're made of.
See the times.
Yeah, man.
This is no IP45 where you can boost your car to hell and pretend that was the limit of your car in the race. This is actual racing. So just come through and show us, man.
Shots fired.
Yeah, man. I as a fan of racing, I can't really not say anything, but I'm all for scale and fairness and stuff. But for me, honestly, Chad, it makes no sense for me to qualify for a class and I know my car is 3 times the pace of the class, and then go into the class, win, and say, yes, I'm the best. No, you're trash.
Touche. That's good thought though. I like the spirit of competition as well.
Yeah,
so,
man, definitely.
Yeah, here we are.
Definitely, man.
So, with about a little over half an hour to go in the practice session, I think this is the list of drivers that we'll be seeing for this evening. Not a bad showing, as Jaden has almost matched pace with the fastest time so far this week. So this should give us an idea of what quali times should look like tomorrow. And we should be on for what promises to be, if not an all-out war, certainly a decent battle between the top 3 drivers, who are all within a tenth of each other. That is Moss, Harrison, and Eaton. We've seen 2 of the 3 out on track this evening, and as they're showing, their times are still within 4/10 of each other. So there is a promise of some war tomorrow, and we will.
Yes.
If you're thinking what I think you're thinking, let's just leave it alone. But yeah, and it looks like there's another battle shaping up in the midfield as those rivals all seem to be very close together as well. So there promises to be some excitement, and this again, folks, is just race 1 of 7. There are 7 races to go in this championship. Drivers are fighting it out to claim their share of $100,000, and we will see who comes out on top, and to the victor will be the spoils.
I'm trying to, during your attempt on this wonderful track. No, I didn't mean that. I don't. He's trying to create trouble. That's not what I meant. But how, considering the track, the conditions are the 100% optimum track conditions. How long or how many laps did it take for you to settle the tires in?
To settle the tires?
Meaning for you to experience full grip. You think?
So every 20 laps, the grip goes up by a percent. It just depends on where the grip starts throughout the session. Right, so if grip starts at close to optimum, then you can get to optimum fairly quickly. However, this is not one of those situations where the track rubbers in quite as quickly as you think. It's a little bit different to F1 in that F1, they're certainly generating more rubber over 1 lap than I can do in about 10 laps in this car. So it's not a similar situation, but you do gain grip over time. And I think it's less about the grip that you gain and more about understanding the car and how the car reacts throughout a lap and around the track. Because when I started out, as I was telling Steven yesterday, I think yesterday was the first time I put in a valid lap around the track.
Well, you did 1 valid.
Right, I'm being corrected by El Presidente as I had done 1 valid lap prior in about 20 attempts. And I think I maybe did 3 yesterday in about 15 attempts. So what my issue was around this track is that I certainly have the tendency to overdrive a car, in that I try to push the car as far as I possibly can, and I will push it further than I possibly can past the point of braking, just to kind of see what the limits are, and then I dial it back from there. If I know I'm over the edge, this is sim racing. I'll quicker be forgiven than in a real life car. So I can always dial it back after finding out where the edge is, as opposed to having to inch my way forward, which is probably the correct way to do it. However, here we are.
The penalties associated with, as we saw in our last chase for pace race, would it be a situation of a drive-through, or will drivers be required to slow down on the track for a certain amount of time?
Here's the thing. 1, I don't think you'll be finding that drivers are getting very many cut penalties around here, and I'll tell you why. You get cut penalties for leaving the track and gaining time. But 9 times out of 10, when you leave the track around here, you are certainly losing time. There is but 1 corner where you can gain time. There is about 1 corner where you can gain time by leaving the track, and it's turn 5. 5A. Because if you are going through that corner, when you get to the second part of that corner, because of how the corner is structured, as I think Pommels is about to, right, Pommels does it, where he puts 2 wheels off. If you put all 4 wheels off, you can technically cut that corner. But that's about the only place you gain time by putting tires off the track. So I think that is the only place that you'll have to watch track limits and cutting penalties throughout the weekend.
So I guess no cutting from 40 to 15 then.
I don't think you will be able to keep control of the car cutting 40 and 50 because on top of I know what you're thinking and I know it's a joke, but when you get to that section you'll understand why, because that's a downhill corner.
Oh no.
So you'll certainly not have any control cutting that.
It's like that the runoff, well it's not a runoff, but after that little chicane at Dover under the bridge, going straight across,
Yeah, exactly.
absolutely no control.
So yeah, so I don't think you'll see much struggles with track limits around here. But what it is that penalty is a kudos penalty. So yeah, that penalty was a kudos penalty, which we have since overruled, just because it seemed a little harsh. That for any cut that you have been deemed to gain an advantage, quote unquote, you would have to slow down for that duration of time. Therefore, we will just stick to the real penalties where, as Stephen Pommel's there having an incident, car,
I'm envisioning
lots of this tomorrow, I think so.
in the first couple of laps quite a few
I
track
think
cuts
so.
because at this moment they're only used to taking the correct line. There's no experience necessarily with having to drive with another driver such a
I think, in
tight
all
space.
honesty, I disagree for one reason and one reason alone. In that, again, I don't think cuts gain you any time. Yeah,
oh, well, you did say
you
that,
want
you did say
to.
that, yeah, correct.
Yeah, you want to tell me that the driver
Okay.
might put his wheels out there, but I think the most you have to do is single file up and hope for the best.
Question: If let's say illegally, of course, but
Uh-huh.
you and I are driving and we're trying to beat these guys, you know, it's really hard. And I say, you know what? Between 14 and 15, if I drive as fast as I can
And just chuck the
and
car.
crash into Chad so that you push him all the way across to 15 and land back on the track, and you maintain control, will you get a cut? If I hit
Definitely.
you,
100%.
if I hit you, you'll get a cut.
Certainly.
Okay.
I still cut the track. As long as I gain the advantage. Well, that's why the slowdown penalty comes into play, right? Because if I gain an advantage, one of two things is supposed to happen. I'm either supposed to give back a position if I gain the position with that advantage, or I'm supposed to give back the time I gained as the advantage. So one of those two things should happen.
So that's a loophole with the president. Like we can try that. As long as there's nobody in front of us, I can just continue hitting you through 14, 15.
Yeah, but then certainly the stewards will be looking at you wondering why you are.
Post race.
And we certainly have penalties to issue after the race and all of that. So the first time you touch me, brother, I am on the phone to the stewards. Sir, check this
I
man.
was helping him. You mean, we're all brothers here.
Yeah, no. I notice you are the king of trying to find loopholes in racing.
Yep. You have to find it in life. Remember, you know.
But you gotta have to figure out how to just get faster, bro. that's what's gonna have to happen.
The cameraman here showing off his camera skills. To see the brakes absolutely glowing. Man, can you imagine Sims in, I don't know, the next 20, 30 years?
What the graphics will look like and all
Well,
of that.
just
Yeah,
everything.
no,
'Cause it's been about that since the beginning of racing, 2000s,
put it this
99,
way,
yeah.
with where VR is going, I would say in another 10 years, it might feel like you're actually sitting in a car.
It's hard to fix. Yeah, shop.
Yeah, yeah. So actually, there are already strides towards that in terms of, yeah, motion rigs that try to generate. It's not going to generate all of the G-force that you get, but it generates some of the G-force that you might experience actually being out there on track, and couple that with VR in terms of getting you in a sim with the VR headset and all of that. It feels fairly real.
I really want to experience that, but what's it called? IDP? Is that the correct name? The distance between your eyes that has to work with the equipment?
Sure, let's go with
Okay,
that.
it's supposed to control how you see, because not
Right,
every...
I get what
yeah.
you mean.
Yeah, my face is twisted, so it doesn't really work out for me, but it's something I'd really like to experience in its entirety, like no light leakage, I
so
just want
G,
to...
you don't think they make them to adjust? Like,
No, it
how-
only adjust side to side.
Ladies
one
and
eye go up
gentlemen.
and down.
Ladies and gentlemen, Andrew is not Quasimodo. Andrew is maybe his face is slightly asymmetrical, but Andrew make it sound like him look like the Loch Ness monster. I don't understand.
No, it's just I tried it and it's a lot of light leakage. My friend told me that I look like the Green Goblin. I just stick
Wow.
with it, yeah. And they used to call me Smeagol. Actually. So
Wow, I almost told a story that I don't think I should tell on this stream, but we'll talk off air. Yeah, no, that is what high school you went to?
it's different. It's not even a school. It's just my best bro. It's like how you guys interact. It's
Okay.
kind of like that, but
Okay.
just a little bit worse.
No, I know there are high school out there like
No,
the,
man, I
the
had no
Dodgers
friends in
man
high
them
school.
have a
Nobody's
style.
friends Or Mission Wallace with a personal best of a 152.7.
And he is, yeah, finding a little bit of time there to lead us. So, maybe there's still time to be found around this track. There's still 24 hours, 20 hours for the drivers to play with prior to race time.
I
So,
must say, this is probably one of the better looking landscapes I've seen in terms of the tracks we've done. I mean, last week's never looked so bad.
but first of all, let's talk about the extensiveness of this track itself. As Stephen is giving us the panned view now, you see parking lots over yonder, and actually there are very many points that you can take the car off track and drive through those areas. This scan is something to behold.
I noticed the center of the track. I don't know if Mr. Cameraman can show us that the middle where we're not using. Are these
Yeah, so there are
of-
variations
Okay.
to the track that actually are available to be raced, but are not being used for this event. We're using the standard international circuit. And yeah, as Steven is showing us very many different parking lots. I mean, I have seen tracks that were a little bit, extensive, but this one, nothing like I've ever seen before.
Yeah.
If you look straight across over yonder, there's a whole track over there that you can drive through. See? So it is something else, man. Something else. I whoever did this, kudos.
I tried making a Palisades track and I gave up in like 2 minutes because after the scanning of the track from Google to then some other program, I'm like, you know what, this is not for me. But I don't know if you've seen it. I don't remember the name of the page, but there's this guy that does these scans of actual streets and he takes time, takes up people, whatever, but parked cars and stuff. And he
Sorry,
superimposed.
I'm gonna cut you for one quick
Sorry.
second, just to kind of bash the cameraman. Like, if this was an actual helicopter, the helicopter pilot that crashed about 3 times a while ago, and me dizzy watching this man pan in circles.
Mad.
But yes, back to your story.
I don't even know what the story was now. Could you remember what was I saying?
You were saying there's a guy that does scans of.
yeah. So he created a set of course of shots, but of the actual street itself. So it's like a photo finish, and it was just amazing to me, man. Like what these people can do
Yeah, no.
with technology.
No, trust me, it's out there in the world, the technology that we'll have access to in the next 5 to 10 years.
Not to mention AI.
Oh, let's not.
Oh, boy.
I have mixed opinions on
Yes,
that.
I do as well.
Um,
Believe me.
Let's not go
Believe
down
me.
that rabbit hole this evening. It is 8:42 p.m. on a Friday.
My next race, I can just inject something in my car.
Um,
Laced up.
I don't know what going for the cameraman here, no, because like him
Are you
suddenly. No, no, okay. So just F1, please. Yeah, no, we apologize for the TV direction there, as he was clearly trying to launch himself into orbit just now. And we now have Tavar Clark on track. I still believe I owe him an apology from last week's race.
But what?
Yeah, no, lap 1, sector 3, the right at the end of sector 2, the last chicane.
That's the person you hit up?
That's the person I hit off.
Man.
So, Tavar, if you do hear this later, I do apologize. Yeah, not much more to be said.
Yeah, it's not sincere. I'm just joking. Yeah. But I am curious to know exactly what is happening with Tavar, because as I mentioned before, he's a very fast driver. He's a clean driver, and he's consistent, but he's not racing. He's not. I don't know anything about the man's life, so I'm not going to sit here and make any assumptions. However, I can't see why he would not be able to make basically any of the races so far, and showing up late in one. I just don't see that kind of approach from a driver of his caliber. Like, there's no need to slack off if indeed you're a slacker.
I mean, here's the hope, right? And this is a genuine hope from me personally. I'm just going to put that disclaimer out there. This is Chad Dillon's views, not the views of the JSRA or anybody in between. But here we have 12 drivers that are competing in a 7-race series. At the end of that 7-race series, they have an opportunity to win someone. The general goal of the JSRA is to build a brand, to build a culture around which we have a platform that the drivers can showcase their talents, hopefully build themselves up to the next level of racing, of sim racing, where you have international championships that are paying out big money, right? Now you're getting a taste of what could be on the horizon for you as a driver. Up to this point, all of the competitions have kind of been fun, with the exception of probably Monaco's qualifier last year, where you had a chance to represent Jamaica in an esports world championships. Everything else has kind of been, yeah, we're doing it seriously, but there is nothing at stake. Now that something is at stake, maybe the drivers will start to see that they have to put the work in order to be competitive on not just a national scale, but an international scale. There are other countries lined up to have competitions with us, and who's to say that there won't be cash prizes on offer for those events in the future? And who is to say that there aren't immense opportunities? I'm gonna F1 Esports last year paid out 750,000 euros to the winner. You understand me? Enough man to make that in them lifetime. And there's a Porsche Cup that we've been pushing guys to that gives out prizes that enough man don't dream of. Porsche GT3 cars, watches, you know what I mean? There are opportunities in sim racing now that did not exist previously. And sim racing on a whole is growing as a brand. There are countries that this is people's full-time job. Them get up, sit down on a server day in, day out, sit down on their own rig day in, day out, master a lap. When I watch F1 Esports Championships, those drivers are pinpoint accurate lap after lap after lap. They don't miss by even hundreds. Cool? And those drivers are competing for upwards of 700,000 euros. Opportunities are out there.
Yes.
And if the driver's not taking it serious, how are you going to better yourself? How are you going to improve? How are you going to move to the next level?
Exactly.
That being said, my hope coming out of this peak performance is that these drivers now have to commit to 7 weekends out of the next 14 weeks to go racing, at least.
But
And the man them that serious going to be going for racing all 14 weekends.
you see the thing with that as well, Chad, now that you brought that up. Aside from the incentive, if you don't enter the haha championships as you put it, where these other drivers are actually driving, the ones who are winning on 700,000, you will never get it because you're not giving yourself the experience. And if you're, for example, online lobby like myself, where's pure chaos every day, you don't get a chance to be consistent because it's very dirty drivers. It's just way too many variables than you'll be experiencing in an official
Agreed.
setting.
Definitely agreed. And I thank you for bringing that point up. In that this is a platform where we are enforcing rules. There are stewards in place. All the things are there that should push a driver to want to move in this direction. That gives a driver the opportunity to develop themselves. You know, I have man trying to hit you out a race. You know, I have man doing all manner of foolishness. Racing standards and etiquette are upheld in the JSRA and on all JSRA branded events. So there is no reason that a man that has the talent that a Jaden Harrison, a Mark Anthony Eaton, a Kurt Moss has can't push them brand and bring themselves to competing in big name events. Khalil Rickford, who has been in a few of our races, has competed in PSGL. That is the big leagues for sim racing in Europe. And, one of. And competing in that kind of competition can do anything but build your brand in terms of, one, pads your resume so them know you have racing in organized events under your belt. And two, it gives an opportunity to more watched leagues for you to be noticed, for your talents to be recognized.
Yes.
And
Exactly. Because a lot of these drivers, I notice, not these in particular, drivers in general tend to think that only first, second, and third are rewarded. That's not the
that's
case.
absolutely not true.
You can come 10th for the rest of your life and still make a living, if you know what I'm saying. If you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's fair. It just depends on the kind of reputation that you're building
Yes,
for
they're
yourself.
looking for people that can depend
So-
on.
And this is not throwing words
no,
at anybody, and this is not
Not at all.
us trying to attack anybody, but this is just to point out that there are ways and means to go about something that can bring you benefits. And if you don't see the benefits, why are you here? Find something else to do with your time and leave this to the man them that's serious.
What I've noticed as well, just based on life experience, because I'm an old man, Sometimes you feel passionate about something at a particular moment in your life. You're not sure what you want to do, you know. However, in pursuing your perceived passion right now, you end up meeting people, start networking with different people, possibly different areas, and you find what you really want to do. You know what I mean?
Agreed.
So it's bigger than what it is, than just, oh, let me come first and try to win something. It's possibly, it could lead you to a whole different avenue that you never thought of doing in the first place.
Agreed. No passion unpursued brings you glory.
None. But I just hope to see Mr. Clark in tomorrow's race, and I hope to see him do well as I do the other drivers. Coming from another fast driver as well, you know. I'm just, you know, myself, Mr. Chad Dillon and myself.
Why? I like your delusions of grandeur, you know. I appreciate that you brought me along for the ride, but let's not trick ourselves here. And it's not that we wouldn't be out there competing, but sometimes it's worth knowing your role.
Yes. I found something, on that note, I found something I actually like to do in racing.
There you go.
Yes. Which is not racing, but commentating. But you know, it's a wonderful journey to embark on.
Yeah. So, as we're winding down, we have about 7 minutes left in this practice session. There's a bit of ranting going on from myself and my co-host. But yeah, so we have 3 drivers within a second of each other. Actually 4 if you count Roper, because he is just outside of a second of the top time thus far. And there are, well, at least one more for sure in Kurt Moss that is right in the middle of this pack, actually closer to the front of this pack. So we do have some exciting racing on our hands throughout this weekend. We will be live at 7:30 tomorrow. At 7 tomorrow for, you know, the initial practice introductions, etc., leading right into qualifying at 7:30. So we implore you to join us if you are inclined to some action. You know, it's in that gap between qualifying and Sunday morning race for F1. So, you know, it's an entire day of racing if you're so inclined. And yeah, just taking some sim racing action as you go through your Saturday evening if you're not in the club.
The club, I haven't heard that word in over 20 years.
Boy. And yeah, no, that was going to be my next point. Andrew sounding ancient like myself, you know. But yeah,
Who's Jay? Sorry.
that is
Oh,
the
okay.
commentary view. The safety
I
car.
thought it was another 007 moment. One of these, you know.
Leave 007 alone. So yeah, I don't think we'll be seeing much changes in terms of the current order. The top 2 were in the pits. Eaton is now heading back out on track, and out on track currently are Mitchell Wallace, Tavar Clark, and Mark Anthony Eaton. Tavar adding to his lap tally. Do remember these drivers have to get to 75 laps, so let's hope that he will spend his evening competing, as he has about 45 laps to do in order to make the goal of completed laps.
So Mr. Clark has completed 47 valid,
No, 20 valid.
20 valid laps, 47, but that's the nature of this track. You're going to find yourself running off, so it's not necessarily a testament to his skill, but rather testament to the nature of the track, as I said earlier. Yeah, we're in the winding up stages now. Eaton doesn't seem to be going after time, as I suggested earlier, probably more focusing on the approach to the track and possibly different lines he could be taking to see where he can find his edge. Because on a track like this, it would be wise to put yourself in certain positions or certain lines, considering it's so close, because other drivers may greatly compromise the line that you're used to. But very consistent chop. Mr. Wallace. Mr. Wallace. 5/10 behind. This is yeah. Yeah, so the park, Chad. I think I may have found this issue.
Okay.
He did 2 laps
Yeah, well,
since
there
he
you go.
restarted. So what was the previous? Do you remember what the previous amount of laps he did?
I do not.
Oh. This track definitely needs more than. This track needs at least 100 and. So. Oh, so total 11 laps.
Yeah.
Did 2 laps. Shaved 4 seconds.
Yeah, so
He's-
again, coming from me and my about 30 laps apart, and still only find about a 155, maybe a 154 if I can string the lap together without putting all 4 wheels off at turn 5A.
Oh boy.
Yeah, this is not a track that, like, there are tracks that you go to and you can be good at with minimal effort, right? I would say an easy enough track to drive is probably round 3, Austria. Cool, Red Bull Ring, not so
Yeah,
bad.
that's a nice track.
But a track like this one, if you're not giving it your maximum effort, because first of all, there are 2 things to consider here. You can, if on raw talent alone you're quick, and you understand the car and you understand the track, maybe you can find a time. But what needs to be worked on around here more than anything else is consistency, because as easy as Eaton made that corner look a while ago, I want you to know that that's one of the hardest corners around that track.
I'm gonna sit here and tell you it doesn't even look easy. My brain is driving off the track every time I see a corner.
So you can say
That's the pit?
no. That's just a
That's a
runoff.
runoff?
Yeah.
Okay.
That it probably is pits or a different section of track for a different layout. But yeah, that's not a good thing. But certainly, the drivers that have not put in the minimum required laps, and there's a reason El Presidente made it to require you to do these laps, right? It does ensure that people that tuning in to watch good racing get drivers that at least understand the track. it's no fun if you spend half the race spinning out and you are 3 minutes behind the leader that took it serious and decided to put in the work and put in the laps.
So why you decided to throw words at me today?
Pardon?
Or why are you deciding to throw words at me this evening?
Throw words at you?
Yeah, spinning out and 3 minutes behind the leader. I think that's you're trying to make some kind of indirect.
I'm going to use a Jamaican phrase that I'm certain I'm going to get wrong.
Yeah, let me hear it. Let me hear it now.
I'm certainly I'm going to get it wrong. However, I'm going to borrow that Jamaican phrase from it. And the gist of it is throw stone in a hog pen and it
Mr. Eaton, what is he saying? Because this man is going nowhere.
yes, the point is if it affects
fit.
you.
Yeah. They can't fit.
Indeed. So we apologize for the interruption in streaming once again, ladies and gentlemen. We were just having a few issues here with drivers accessing the server. So we now hope to resume. However, we, your commentary hosts, won't be with you much longer. However, we will leave the on-track action up for a few minutes post commentary, I guess. We do thank you for joining us here on this Friday evening practice, and we definitely are looking forward to seeing you all with us tomorrow for the opener of the inaugural JSRA season with the JEI Peak Performance,
What time is this, Chad?
starting at 7 p.m. Quali begins at 7:30, and you have 2 races back to back. You don't shorter action, none at all. So we hope to have you with us, folks. We hope to give you a show. We see the potential for the show. The track is there, the drivers are there, the car is there. It's just for it to all come together.
Money is there.
Yeah, the talk, make them hear you. Yeah, man, the money that I took. That's correct, sir. So, once again, folks, thank you for joining us. I have been your ever too talkative host, Chad Dillon, joined by my cohort, the ever inquisitive Mr. Anderson. We do appreciate you tuning in, and as a driver is having a pit stop moment there, thanks for joining us once more, folks, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
recommendation.